Hey everyone, Tara Lynn here. Welcome to Lady in Silver. Gather up all your supplies and then we will get started. I have a 12-inch surface that I'm painting on here. I have the background painted in color Zinc, which is a nice dark gray. I love this color. It's a beautiful neutral. And then this design has 4 colors that I am using. And so you can substitute any 4 colors that you want in a similar, I would stick with a similar range. But what I am specifically using is Dazzling Metallics White Pearl. Of course, any white pearl or any pearl color would be beautiful. I've got a silver. I'm using Love Color in Silver Flash. It's my absolute favorite silver. Dazzling Metallics also has a silver that is just as pretty. I've got Gray Sky, which is a lighter shade of gray. And so, of course, if you are mixing your own grays, you just want a dark gray for the background and a light gray for this color. And then I'm using Painted Desert Acrylics in Fairy Dust, and this is going to be my iridescent color. Of course, if you don't have this exact paint, you can use any iridescent. Decoart has an enchanted line that would be really pretty. There's all kinds of iridescents you can use. Amsterdam acrylic has a beautiful set of iridescents. I'm choosing one that has kind of a blue silver sparkle. And those are the 4 colors that I'm going to be using. So of course you can substitute as you wish. But we're going to go ahead and get started on this design. I've got my 16 arm stencil marked on here, and I have rings every 1 centimeter. So go ahead and pause the video here, get your background situated, get all of your supplies out, and then we will get started. All right, we are going to use a 10 millimeter tool, or you can just paint in. Your first ring is 10 millimeters, and for that I am going to use my Gray Sky. Next, I'm going to get an 8 millimeter tool, and for this I am going to use the silver. We are going to make 8 teardrops, and so I'm going to put the dot in between ring 2 and 3. I'm going to put these on every other line. So ring 1 is right where the center dot stops. Then we've got ring 2, and then ring 3 is out here. And this should fit comfortably in between ring 2 and 3 on the line. We're going to do every other. So once you get a dot there, you are going to take your small stylus and pull that dot into a teardrop shape. Then what we're going to do is we're going to place a center dot and then walk the dots around this on each side. For my center dot, I'm going to use a 3mm stylus, and we're using the gray sky. Once you have those 8 dots, I'm going to switch to a 2mm stylus, and I'm going to use my gray, and I'm going to walk the dots on each side. I can fit 10 comfortably, so I'm going to try to do 10 dots on every petal. then we're going to use a 4mm tool, and right after ring 3, just outside ring 3, we're going to use a 4mm tool, and we're going to use our iridescent. And we're going to place a 4mm dot in between each petal. So there are 8 of those. For the next step, we are going to add rhinestones. I prefer to glue these on after the piece is completed and the chalk lines are completely removed. You can do it that way, or if you prefer to work with the rhinestones on, where we're going to place them is you want to find your teardrop, and then we're going to go out to ring number 5, and we're going to center that on that line, and it should fit between ring number 4 and ring number 6 perfectly. Now, I prefer to work with a stencil and come back and place those later. And so I'm just going to add my stencil lines in the same place. So I've got my little template. Either way, if you want to use the template, that's fine. But we just need to place these so that we can work around them. Eek! Do not put your fingers in the paint. That is a bad idea. All right, so either you have your rhinestones or you have your stencil, and we are going to work around that. Once you have your rhinestone placement, we are going to get our styluses again, 3mm. We're going to place our center dot just beyond ring 6. So we've got these rhinestones centered on ring 5. I'm going to use white pearl, and my center dots are just beyond ring 6, just beyond ring 6, 3mm stylus. And then what we're going to do, I'm just showing you with chalk so that when we dot our dots, you know where we're going. We are going to walk the dots to create a petal around the rhinestone. So if I've got my rhinestone placed here, visually, we want this to go around the rhinestone to the base. And so you kind of want to have a visual of the depth and the width of where we're going. So we're going to start up here by this pearl dot, and we are going to go down to ring number 4. You don't have to mark the lines with chalk unless it helps you visually, okay? So once we've got our 3mm up here, I'm going to switch to a 2mm stylus, and we're going to use that white pearl, and we're going to walk the dots at that same angle. Oops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can fit 8 comfortably, so we're going to do 8 on each side. Two millimeter stylus and white pearl. Next, we're going to do a little bit of brush work, and sometimes when I use silvers and iridescents, you'll be able to see the chalk marks through your piece or through the paint, and I don't want that. So I'm just going to erase some of these with a Q-tip, and we're primarily working in between rows 4, and we're going to go to row 7. And so I'm just going to erase these chalk marks kind of in between. You don't have to do this. This is just kind of my little safeguard, because once they're underneath that acrylic paint, nothing you do is going to hide them. Usually when we pull our brush strokes with our brush, it'll pick up the chalk and remove it. But like I said, when I really love a piece and I realize I have some chalk marks that I can't get rid of, it really breaks my heart. All right. So I just cleaned that up a bit with a wet Q-tip. Kind of optional, but better safe than sorry. And I'm using my brush here. I'll be using the Happy Dotting Company brush C, which is one of my favorite ones to use. And I'm going to start off using the Fairy Dust, my iridescent. And what we're going to do is we're going to start up by ring 4, and we're going to swoop down and finish right by ring number 7. And so the trick here when you're doing these brush strokes is you start by pushing down and then slowly pulling and lifting. So push down, pull, lift, finish. Push down, pull, lift, finish. Push down, pull, lift, finish. So we're going to go around each one of those to create a petal. Once you complete all of those, we're going to repeat this process, this time with the silver. Starting at the same point and ending at the same point. Next, we've got some space in between this kind of pattern here and in between these petals. So we're just going to fill some of that in a little bit with the pearl paint. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my 1.5 millimeter stylus, and around, I'm going to find this teardrop petal, and in between these two iridescent dots, I'm going to swoop inward and outward. So what that looks like is one swoop this way and one swoop this way. And so we're kind of aiming with a curve to the point of that rhinestone. Then we're going to get a 4 millimeter rod, continuing with the white pearl. This time I'm going to make a dot on ring 7 where the petals meet. So we're going to put 8 dots on ring 7 at the tip of the petal. Once you have those 8 dots, we're going to switch to a 6 millimeter stylus. And I don't want to do these on ring 7. I want to do them slightly inside ring 7, but we're going to create a long drawn teardrop in here, again with the pearl. So I'm going to dip in that white pearl, and then just inside ring 7, I'm going to make a dot. I want to make it really nice and thick, lots of paint. And then I'm going to take a small stylus and I'm going to pull that teardrop inward and kind of fix up that shape. And we're going to do this 8 times all the way around in between each petal. All right, next we are going to do some swoops and fill in some patterning in between the base of these petals. The first thing I'm going to do is use my 3mm stylus and my gray. I need to mix it up a little bit. It's getting a little dry from just sitting. All right, so 3mm and gray. So I'm going to dip, and then what I'm going to do is kind of start next to this teardrop up in the little nook, and then pull a swoop down towards that pearl dot. So dip and swoop, and dip and swoop. We're going to do this all the way around. next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue using that 3mm stylus. I'm going to use my silver paint. So this time we are going to do, we're still going to do some pulling with the stylus, except this time I'm going to go right on line 7 or ring 7, and I'm going to pull straight towards that dot. So we've got 2 that are curvy and 2 that are more straight, this time with the silver. And then we're going to do this one more time, this time with the iridescent. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to go slightly below that silver, and I'm going to curve it upward. Next, we're going to create a ring, and I am right at ring number 8. I don't want to get up too close to the swoops we just did, so I'm going to work just outside of ring 8. So I want to use a 5mm 5mm rod, and I'm going to place it so that when I make my dot, the edge just touches ring 8. I'm going to use the silver, and I'm just going to gently work my way around the ring. as you get close to the end of your ring, make sure you are cautious with your spacing. All right, next I'm going to get a 4mm tool, and I'm going to use my gray. Use your judgment. If this is tighter for you and you don't have room, it's okay to skip things or change the size if you need to. Inside this ring, just below the petals and the swoops, I've got room, and I'm going to put a set of double dots. So I've got a line right here down the middle, and that's what I'm going to use as kind of my guideline. I'm going to dip and place 1 4mm to the right and 1 4mm to the left. And then I'm going to repeat this all the way around. So we're going to do sets of double dots. Once you finish your ring and your double dots, we are going to work around rhinestones again. This time I want them in between ring 10 and 11, and we're working on the ray that is in between these petals. So we've got this teardrop here, this pearl teardrop, and I'm going to put my rhinestones in between that section there. So depending on what you want to do, you can either glue them on or use a little stencil. Once you have the 8 marked in, then I'm going to add another set of 8 in between those. I guess we could have just done it one by one. Anyway, we're going to end up with 16 of these. These are going in between, and so these are in the rays just below where we did the gray double dots. So we either have our rhinestones or our template where we want those to be. I'm going to use my 3mm tool. We are going to place our center dot and then walk the dots around. So I'm going to use my iridescent 3mm center dot. This center dot is going to go just beyond, it's going to go between ring 11 and 12. And so I'm going to need 16 of these. Once you have all 16 of those, you're going to switch to a 2mm stylus and we're going to walk the dots on each side. We're going to start right next to the dot we created and then we're going to end in between ring 9 and 10. I can fit 8. We're continuing with the same color, the iridescent. I'm going to do both sides, but for whatever reason, I started doing one side only. Sometimes I work a little faster when I do all the right side and then go back and do all the left. So next what we're going to do is take a 4mm dotting rod. You can see here, we're going to place these center dots and we're going to walk the dots just like we did, but these are going to be a little bit larger. So we're going to start with a 4mm center dot on ring 12. All right, what we're going to do now is we're going to cheat the walking the dots a little bit. So you can see here what I've done is I've added the first set of dots on each side with my 3mm tool. I'm using my 3mm stylus, and that gets us started. That gives us a little more room when we walk the dots. This fills up a little more room because we do have a ways to go. Once we have all of the start dots, we're going to dip again, and then we can walk the dots down each side. All right, you can see what I've done here in the next step. I'm using my Happy Dotting Company C brush, and we are going to create a petal here, starting up by this ring, and we are going to pull it down to the outside of the petal and end on ring 13. So we start at the top, push down, pull, lift, push down, pull, and lift. We're going to do this all the way around. Once you have those petals completed with your brush strokes, we are going to grab a 4mm rod, gray paint, and at the base of this brush stroke on ring 13, we're going to add a gray dot. once you have those gray dots, we're going to walk the dots on each side. Again, using my 3mm tool, I'm going to dip and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're not going all the way around, but as you can see here, we're just kind of creating a little bit of filler. So this is a 3mm stylus and gray. And I'm just doing 5 on each side. Once you finish walking the dots, we are going to go back to our silver and our brush. And what we're going to do this time is we are kind of reversing the direction that we're making this petal. So I am going to start down here at the bottom, push and pull, and then I'm going to let it fade into that top petal here. So let's see. It's hard to show this on camera without blocking it. I'll do it this way. Hold on. All right, starting up here. push and pull, and then let it fade into that top petal. And we're going to do this all the way around. Next, we're going to add another layer to this petal, this time with the gray. So I'm going to repeat this same process, except this time I'm going to leave, I don't want to start up here in the same place. I'm going to start just a little bit farther inward. These petals are going to touch, hopefully in the middle is what we're aiming for. So see how these touch right in the middle? That's what we want. Next, what we're gonna do is get our 2mm stylus, and we are going to swoop into where these swooshes meet here. I'm going to use 2mm white pearl. So I'm going to dip and swoop, and then dip and swoop. Next, I'm going to take this same 2mm stylus, and then just inside this little triangle we've created, I'm going to use my iridescent and place a little dot right in between. So 2mm and iridescent. Next, we are going to take a 6mm dotting rod, and in between these petals is where we're looking. So we've been working mainly on the lines. Now we're going to be working in the spaces. If you want to, you can draw a little line. So see where I am pulling from where these brush strokes meet outward, or wherever your center is. I'm centered between two lines. And I'm just going around and drawing this because visually it helps me. You don't have to do this. Technically we're working in the spaces, but I'm placing a line there so that I am evenly spacing these apart. Okay, so we're working in between these petals. I'm going to take my 6mm rod, and then right about line or ring 14, we're going to place a dot, and we're going to go around, and there are going to be 16 of these. So I'm not placing them in the middle where my brush strokes are. I'm placing them on the outsides of these petals, not kind of in the middle of where that flower meets at the top. And because iridescent can sometimes just be transparent, I'm just going to go through and add a little bit more paint to each one of these dots, but I'm not changing the size. I'm just making sure they are dot-alicious. What we are aiming to replicate with this part of the design is this right here. So we're going to mimic that down here at the bottom. And so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use my 3mm tool and my gray paint. And then I'm going to pull a swipe towards that dot on each side. It's kind of, it can be a swipe or a swoop. It's okay if you add a little curve to it. It's okay if you do it straight, but whichever way you decide to do it, just make sure that you're kind of repeating that same technique all the way around. Once you do all the gray swoops, we're going to add a silver swipe. This one's going to be the middle part, just like we did up here, 3mm, silver paint. We're going to swipe inward. Once you finish the silver layer, I am going to do the same thing again, just like we did up here with the iridescent. So I'm going to use my fairy dust, 3 millimeters, and I am going to swoop this third part here. I do make it more like a swoop here on the outside. And we're going to do that part all the way around. So what we're doing now, let me show you, is I'm going to use a 4 millimeter tool, and we are going to add in a set of double dots. So just like we did up here, we're going to mimic that all the way around the edge. So we're going to go to the inside of the design, dip and dot, and dip and dot. And that's going to finish the base layer or the base dots of this design. once you've gone all the way around with those double dots, what we're going to do is let this dry completely. And then we're going to come back and we are going to do just a few top dots. We're not going to go crazy, but let this dry completely. I recommend overnight. And then we're going to come back to the second video. We're going to glue on our rhinestones and we're going to add just a few top dots. So come back with your piece dried, wipe off your chalk marks, and I'll see you in the next video, everyone.